The left does a good game talking about intersectionality, but the right wing organizes intersectionally while we organize in silos. Then, even within those silos, we call each other out.
This beautiful human being speaking right now is Loretta Ross. She is an activist, she's a scholar, she is a professor. She's spent her entire life fighting for mainly women's rights, but all sorts of human rights. And she makes a lot of really, really good points in her interview she did with this podcast called the Man Enough Podcast. Now, the interview itself is quite long, and I can't talk about all of the different points that she made, but there were a couple of points that really stuck with me that I want to focus on today. And the first point I want to talk about is something that I think my generation and generations younger than me can get really caught up in, especially in the age of social media being so dominant, is this idea of moral purity and how it's sort of overtaking reality and actually fighting for tangible rights.
But back in the civil rights movement, they had a saying that we need to learn to turn to each other instead of on each other. Yeah. If they were all on the same side, bitterly fighting, Dr. King, Reverend Lowry, Andrew Young, they were fighting, but they knew how to strategically unite in the face of segregationists. And so my biggest fear is that we major in disunity instead of unity. A line I use in my book is that the left does a good game talking about intersectionality, but the right wing organizes intersectionally while we organize in silos. Then, even within those silos, we call each other out for not being Black enough, or feminist enough, or trans enough, or whatever, and not knowing the latest lingo off of TikTok and calling each other problematic and saviors and act like cynicism is something that only you have created or something.
Now, throughout this entire interview, she talks a lot about the concept of cancel culture and calling somebody out versus what she prefers to do and prefers others to do and thinks is more effective. And I also think is more effective, which is essentially what she calls calling somebody in, which is essentially approaching someone who has maybe said something incorrectly, behaved incorrectly, still holding them accountable, letting them know that that's not acceptable behavior, but doing it out of a place of educating and love and care for another human being. And I think this ties into what I was saying earlier about how we get really caught up in this moral purity and we don't see what's actually effective. What's actually effective for change and helping someone change their behavior is approaching them from a place of respect and love, not from blasting them on the internet.
I believe that cancel culture is not a real thing, that it's about accountability.
Well, the basic definition of calling somebody in is based on the definition of calling somebody out. When you call somebody out, you're publicly shaming somebody because you want to hold them accountable for the harm that they've done. And probably the most important word in that sentence is that you did it publicly, because you certainly could have pulled them to the side and said the same thing. So you staged it publicly, either online or in person. So a calling in is a call out done with love. You're still pursuing accountability. You're not giving people a pass on injustice. You're just choosing another strategy that's more likely to work, by the way, than putting somebody in front of a firing squad, because nobody runs to jump in front of a bullet. If they know you're coming at them, they're going to run, they're going to hide, they're going to deny, they're going to double down, they're going to do a whole lot of things other than saying, thank you for publicly shaming and embarrassing me. I needed that today. I mean, that is not how humanity works. I'm trying to get people to understand how ineffective call out culture is.
And not only is it ineffective, I think it's stunting possible growth because people are afraid to learn. They're afraid to make mistakes and be corrected and learn and try again because you can't make a mistake. If you make one single mistake or are perceived as making a mistake, you are called out, you are put on blast, and your life could be ended. Now, the flip side of the coin is that people think we're being too sensitive as a culture these days, which I also think is not true. I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's never one of these two extremes. And so I think we're not too sensitive as a culture. I think we are not tolerating as much bigoted behavior as well. And I think this is a really good point that she additionally makes in this interview as well.
I think that we are becoming too sensitive as a culture.
No, we're becoming more mature as a culture. Our ability to see harm is evolving so that things that we would have given a pass to only a few years ago, we no longer have to give a pass to it. Calling people out is our tactic of last resort. It's not the first thing you do. You try to talk to people first. You ask them questions first. People either deny that they've done any harm and claim to be misunderstood and all of that, which is probably true in their eyes, or they fall on their swords like they can't do enough mea culpas. Either one of those doesn't work for me. I want real people
Mm.
around me. I don't need a martyr and I don't need an asshole. I need real people.
The answer, the solution to both extremes is to have compassion for another human being, to have compassion and understanding for another person. I highly recommend checking out the entire interview. It's on YouTube. Loretta Ross has a lot of really amazing, insightful things to say on cancel culture and where we're headed as humanity. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out some of my content that isn't news related, you can check out my personal YouTube page at Bad Gamer Wyatt. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Thank you.